Living systems have been around for a few billion years and will be around for many more. In the living world, there's no landfill. Instead, materials flow. One species' waste is another's food, energy is provided by the sun, things grow, then die, and nutrients return to the soil safely. And it works. Yet as humans, we've adopted a linear approach. We take, we make, and we dispose. A new phone comes out, so we ditch the old one. Our washing machine packs up, so we buy another. Each time we do this, we're eating into a finite supply of resources and often producing toxic waste. It simply can't work long term. So what can? If we accept that the living world's cyclical model works, can we change our way of thinking so that we too operate a circular economy? Let's start with the biological cycle. How can our waste build capital rather than reduce it? By rethinking and redesigning products and components, and the packaging they come in, we can create safe and compostable materials that help grow more stuff. As they say in the movies, no resources have been lost in the making of this material. So what about the washing machines, mobile phones, fridges? We know they don't biodegrade. Here, we're talking about another sort of rethink, a way to cycle valuable metals, polymers, and alloys so they maintain their quality and continue to be useful beyond the shelf life of individual products. What if the goods of today became the resources of tomorrow? It makes commercial sense. Instead of the throw away and replace culture we've become used to, we'd adopt a return and renew one, where products and components are designed to be disassembled and regenerated. One solution may be to rethink the way we view ownership. What if we never actually owned our technologies? We simply licensed them from the manufacturers. Now, let's put these two cycles together. Imagine if we could design products to come back to their makers, their technical materials being reused and their biological parts increasing agricultural value. And imagine that these products are made and transported using renewable energy. Here we have a model that builds prosperity long term. And the good news is, there are already companies out there who are beginning to adopt this way of working. But the circular economy isn't about one manufacturer changing one product. It's about all the interconnecting companies that form our infrastructure and economy coming together. It's about energy. It's about rethinking the operating system itself. We have a fantastic opportunity to open new perspectives and new horizons. Instead of remaining trapped in the frustrations of the present, with creativity and innovation, we really can rethink and redesign our future.
Welcome, everyone, again. Today, this morning, we have a very interesting and packed program with some cool speakers for you today, some interesting panels, so we can get interactive, you can ask questions, and we can really discuss what needs to happen to speed up this transition towards more circular systems. I'm very happy to introduce to you one of the companies, actually two of the businesses, that are really working on making this change, enabling this transition, rethinking existing models and coming up with solutions inspired by the video we just saw. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Mr. Anton from Philips, Anton Brummelhuis. Welcome. And he'll be joined by Floor Felton from the Schiphol Group later. So the floor is yours, Anton.
Good morning. The presentation I will give you today is about our Philips lighting circular model and the next step. And I have to find the sequencer for the next slide. It's probably...
No, dat hebben ze mij niet verteld.
Yeah, yeah.
Problem solved. Oh, shit.
Okay. Before I go deeper into this topic, I would like to share a bit about Philips Lighting. So Philips as a company has been split in two parts. It's the healthcare part and the Philips Lighting part. And Philips Lighting is a 7.5 billion turnover company with 34,000 people, employees, colleagues. And we have, let's say, we are the number one in LED, and more or less 75% of our turnover is business to business. At this moment, we have sustainable revenues of 72%, and we have a vision to move to 80% sustainable revenues. And we are recognized for our sustainability efforts via the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, and we are mentioned industry leader. Just to highlight a few things. There are three major trends which define our surrounding as a lighting company. And one of them is the growth of population. So we see that in 2050, about 10 billion people will live on this planet Earth, and they all need resources. And we just heard from Ellen MacArthur, for the people who went to the other speaking slot, that there is a limit to that. And we also face the digitalization, and all those three together makes that people need more light, more energy efficient light, but also more digital light. And I will come back to that topic a bit later. We recently launched our sustainability vision 2020. It's called Brighter Lives, Better World, and consists out of two parts. The one part is about the social aspects and also about well-being, because with light you can create a better well-being via what we call human-centric lighting, that people feel better, see better and function better. And we also have, let's say, a focus on access to light for the people who are not attached to the electricity grid. There are 1.2 billion people who don't have light, and we want to come up with solutions for solar LED lighting for those people. But we also do want to walk the talk, and we also focus on, let's say, the well-being of our own people and the safety aspects. And those are all, let's say, social improvements we are working on. Besides that, we have the ongoing improvements in ecological aspects, and that is still energy efficiency, which we have done already for 125 years, but this will continue to go on with the digitalization of light. So to provide light where you need it, when you need it, on the right place. Next to that, we also want to do something about this limitation of resources, and that's our new business model. It's called Circular Lighting, and that's the next part of the presentation. And last but not least, also here we do want to walk the talk. So our own operations by 2020 will be without zero waste to landfill. So a short rehearsal on circular economy. On the right side, you see, let's say, the vertical, which is the linear economy of take materials, make products out of it, use them, and at the end, and that's the estimation of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, 95% will end up in landfill still, from a global perspective over all technical materials. While the circular economy basically looks at how to bring back those materials in a very effective way, so at the highest value. And we learned that the highest value is in the inner loops, not so much in the outer loops. And that is why we focus on service. And this is our business model, circular lighting. And to come up with that, we work on the 4 enablers. And I will show that in the next slide. So circular lighting basically optimizes a new go-to-market, so a new business model. We also make use of dedicated designed luminaires and hardware. And you also have to organize that all the materials come back into the economy, so reverse logistics is part of it. And there is no one company, no country who can do this all by themselves, so you also need collaboration. This is an example, and this is our next step in the rollout of our circular lighting concept. Those are dedicated luminaires, which will be launched in Q1 next year, so in February 2017. And those luminaires are optimized for a circular economy. And what does that mean? That does mean that you can easily upgrade them so that they stay relevant for the user, even if the needs of our users change over time. You can do easy maintenance. They are modular from nature. It's like a Lego system. And you can easy disassembly. And the last resort will not be waste to landfill, but will always be to recover the materials for the economy. We also learned that if waste is basically material which is anonymous, it's more or less a kind of orphan which is homeless. So if you provide an identity to materials, you can also do a better job in the recovery and repurposing of materials. And that is why we have identified all those circular economy ready luminaires with a surface tag to provide them an identification. And by doing so, you have many other advantages, because you can also couple this to the Internet of Things and track and trace the hardware over the different usage cycles. So far, this is a bit theoretical approach, but that this is real life. I would like to invite Floor Velten. She is representing our launching customer, Schiphol Airport. And with her, we developed circular lighting in a more sophisticated, more enhanced way. And Floor, I have a small question for you. So Schiphol Airport also is on the front end of circular economy. Can you share a bit with the audience what the approach of Schiphol Airport in this in circular economy is?
Well, thank you. I can certainly. Can you hear me? Is it fine, the mic? Okay. Well, Schiphol, it's not a city. It doesn't have permanent inhabitants. An airport is actually quite similar to a city, I think, although we don't have the inhabitants. If you look at Schiphol, 60 million people travel through the airport every year. And it's really a busy hub airport. And we're very old. This year is our 100th birthday. So I think we're the oldest airport in the world, still on its original location. And maybe you need such an age to also, if you look ahead and if you want to live on for the next 100 years, we are very convinced that it needs to be in a different way. We need to develop this airport more sustainable and be more resilient. So we aim to be, one of our goals is to be a zero waste airport by 2030. And we look for partners. In this example, we partnered with Philips and see how we develop this airport in a different way.
And can you perhaps elaborate a bit upon how circular lighting fits into your approach for a circular economy?
Yeah, I sure can. What we did is we developed a new lounge. You can see some pictures, I hope. Oh, you can't. Well, we had a beautiful lounge area. It's a shopping area in the airport. I think you all traveled here via an airport, so you know what a shopping area in an airport looks like. And we redeveloped that, and we looked at it and said, okay, it needs to be different. We need to do things differently. And we think the circular economy is one of the big pillars to reach our goal to be zero waste airport. And we partnered there with Philips, and we met each other also through the Ellen Carver Foundation, but also because we're both Dutch brands, so we know each other already quite well. And okay, how can we do this differently? And what we decided on is to buy a light performance. So as an airport, we have very asset-intensive infrastructure. It's terminal facilities, runways, everything. So a lot of materials. So it's one big material bank, I sometimes mention to my people. And we decided not to buy the luminaires, but to buy a light performance. So we now buy an annual, we pay an annual fee, and we have light at a certain performance level. And maintenance and energy cost and actually all worries are also still with Philips, together with one of our contractors, Engie. And they provide us with a light service. And for us, that's also a very different model. But that's how we, that's the lounge. So if you travel through Amsterdam, then you can see this in the central area. And it just opened 6 months ago. And it's very successful up to now.
And could you perhaps also tell a bit about the learnings you learned so far from your approach?
Yeah, I'll just share a couple, and if you have any questions, we'll go to that later on. I think one of the most important thing was it took us about 3 to 4 years, and we really needed a partnership. So you cannot hold your cards against your chest, because we didn't know how to describe light performance. We didn't have a clue. So we really had to discuss with Philips in this instance, okay, what does that look like? How do you describe, how do you put on paper and in a contract what light performance looks like? So you need to have an open dialogue and really challenge each other and see whether you pay the right price also, and how you really determine, okay, is this a good contract? Well, one of the things that we learned is that a concept like this can really compete with the traditional way we work. So we calculated that. We looked at the total cost of ownership. What would we have paid if we had bought the luminaires ourselves, maintained them as we always do, and paid for the energy cost? And it was a very competitive deal that we now have to buy light as a service. Yeah.
Maybe perhaps a last question also for the audience. Do you have any recommendations, if you can mention one, if companies want to start or cities want to start with circular economy principles by implementing it?
Okay, it's just do it, but it's it takes a lot of perseverance. So it's more a warning, maybe. I had to convince very many people within our company, okay, we need to do this differently, and it takes effort for people to take the different path. So either whether it's procurement people, legal people, how do we tender this? Does the contract look like? So you really need to convince a lot of people, put a lot of effort in, but also and think about what is the question that you put on the market. If you're an infrastructure provider, as we are, it's really hard to define the right question you put on the market, and how do you incentivize a company like Philips to make better products? Well, that's what they did. They just showed you the new luminaires, and it's by asking, and cities as well as airports have a responsibility to ask a different question to the market and to incentivize the companies that make these products to make better products.
Okay, thank you very much. Perhaps there are some questions in the room, and
any questions?
You would like to facilitate, Roy?
Taking over my role now. Well, thank you very much for this interesting talk. Actually, I have a first question to kick off. We heard Ellen mentioning the importance of the design phase and the design brief as such. So I was wondering, was there any collaboration or interaction between Philips and the customer in the design phase of these solutions as well?
I will first provide an answer from Philips' perspective. Yes, there was. So everything starts with a lighting design, and later on also this service concept to apply circular economy principles. But during that process, we found out that most of our hardware was developed in a linear way. Mm-hmm. So we had to craft a dedicated project team together to make a special luminaire range for this deal for Schiphol. And now we have, let's say, made this more scalable for a whole segment, for an industry segment. But in order to facilitate this circular deal, indeed, there was a collaboration on the lighting, and we made a dedicated design for that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Is there anything you want to add to that, Floor? Or
Well, light design is very important for an airport because you can really influence the ambience and the way people feel at an airport and also the flow. So that's why light design is very important. And I think that normally if a luminaire fails, we replaced it and we buy a new one. And now all of a sudden the worry of what to do when the luminaire fails was handed over to Philips. And that really incentivized them and also, okay, then we're going to look at it differently. So I think it was also, we discussed that very openly with each other. It's really also for Philips. It means they have to be, they have to have the courage to really challenge their own business model.
Interesting, interesting. So I'm wondering, we're hearing you speak towards collaboration and interaction on the customer side. I can imagine that to close the loop, you also need a very intimate relationship with your supply chain partners as well to facilitate all these materials being reused for future products as well. Can you maybe speak to that a little?
Yes, I fully agree that circular economy is all about collaboration, not only with the customer, but also with other players in the value chain and over the value chain. So in Schiphol, we closely work together with Turn 2, which was he's leading in circular economy principles, architect, but also with Deerns, it's an engineering company, and Enchi. At that time it was called Kofeli, but they do all the services at Schiphol Airport, and they were trained to work with our lighting systems. So over and in the value chain there was a lot of collaboration to make this happen.
Okay, cool. That's actually a very nice statement, because one of the takeaways of yesterday was mentioned by Owen Zachariasse, who said, well, the circular economy to me is really about doing fun and interesting projects with friends. So I hear you speaking about partnership, interaction, collaboration, not only between each other, but influencing the whole supply chain needed to really make these new solutions suited for circular economy concepts. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Nice. I don't know if there are any questions from the room. I don't have the Ask and Vote app with me, so if you can step up front and we'll... Did you ask the question through the app? Oh, I'll give him a microphone. Oh. Can you state your name shortly before you ask your question?
My name is Dirk Beldevroe. I'm a, call it sustainability entrepreneur from Amsterdam. Very familiar with the concept. We try to implement it in our office as well. I'm just wondering, on a big scale, in a linear model, there's a transaction. You sell the assets. In a circular model, you keep the assets. Does Philips keep the assets on their own balance sheet in this case? And in that sense, is it scalable in the way that you provided it to Schiphol?
Interesting. Good question.
It's a good question. The answer to this is that Philips takes ownership at the end of the contract. So in this special aspect, all the assets are not on the balance sheet of Schiphol, not on Philips, but a third party, which is another party in the collaboration. And this is basically also the model, that in many cases the assets are not on the balance sheet of the customer, not on the balance sheet of Philips Lighting, but we regain ownership at the end of the contract, and to ensure that we repurpose the hardware for other customers.
Okay, good. So there's a lot of room for financial solutions to support this transition as well. We'll be speaking about them in one of the panels later today. Exactly. So, okay, good. Are there any other questions?
Máté Krize from Foundation for Circular Economy in Hungary. I'm interested about the financial aspect of your project, because you are not selling the product, because you are just using it as a service. So your financial guys were easy to convince, or how is it much better than for you from financially, or it's from Philips' point of view, but also from Schiphol point of view, it's a different business model. So I'm interested about the financial aspect. Thank you.
Yeah, if just a Schiphol perspective, I think I already mentioned a little bit, is what we did is we calculated what it would have cost us over 10 years if we have done it on the traditional way, and compared that with the annual service fee that we now pay, and then it's a positive deal for us. But we did have to debate a lot and exchange actually a lot of knowledge to model the right financial model as well. Because it's only, I think, useful if both parties gain in a new model. So if it's a bad deal for Schiphol or for Philips Lighting, it won't work long term. So we really search for a win-win model.
Okay.
And we had to exchange a lot of knowledge, I think.
Okay, good. Floor, I have one other question for you as well. You pointed out the role of your procurement department in this whole transition towards a different model, light as a service instead of the product. Can you get into the role of the procurement office before and after this deal?
Well, I think that the hardest part for them was to draw up a different contract, well, we really we built a team within Schiphol, and we said, okay, this is the goal we're aiming for, and you all need to think differently, draw up a different contract, see how we can put this on paper. I think we're a very old company, so it's a very solid and traditional procurement department within Schiphol as well. So they needed to make some mind change and mindset changes as well. And we're now trying to bring that further on. See what can we do about furniture within in the terminal facilities, but also now we're building a new terminal. How can we put it in such a way on the market that it's designed to be disassembled when we are going to demolish the terminal again? Okay. So we try to take this much further, and I think by doing the first step, and it's not a perfect deal, I think we got. I mean, it's our first step both ways, so it's not the final solution and a perfect deal, but it's a very steep learning curve, and I think we can take it much further. Okay. We're very satisfied with this first step.
Okay, interesting. Any last questions before we move? Okay, one question over there.
Good morning. Manuel Aguirre from Simpress. I was curious to know what happens when the lighting breaks or fails. Did you take it to your normal standard production so that it gets refurbished, or did you have to build dedicated infrastructure, let's say, to refurbish and re-condition all the lighting so that it gets again in the cycle, let's say? Could you expand a little bit on that? Thank you.
It's a good question. So I explained that one of the 4 enablers is what we call reversed logistics, and eventually, even during operations, once in a while, it might be that a luminaire fails, and it's part of the performance contract that there is uptime guarantee provided by Philips regarding this lighting. So then, let's say the lighting will be taken out of the ceiling or will be repaired in the ceiling. Via the collaboration in first instance, which is ENGIE, they provide the services. But if spare parts are needed or the product needs to be repaired or whatsoever, that will be done on the Philips premise. Is that an answer to your question? Okay.
Okay, good. Then thank you very much. And enjoy the rest of your day. Let's give a warm hand for Schiphol and Philips.
Thank you. Floor.